On New Year's Eve, my sister Camila abandoned my 10-year-old niece, Lucia, at a deserted roadside train platform and drove away with the rest of the family to celebrate the holiday at a rented lodge in the Valle de Bravo Mountains. Before they left, they told her, "You always destroy everything." 5 months later, a letter appeared. And after that, everyone who had walked away from her began to lose control, terrified and determined to bring her back. If you had asked me just an hour before what my evening would look like, I would have given you the most ordinary answer: matching holiday pajamas, a plate of homemade sweets sitting on the counter, and my husband, Raphael, pretending he wasn't looking forward to our silly tradition of eating dinner from paper plates because it was a celebration and nobody wanted to spend the night washing dishes. Then my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. I almost ignored it. Calls like that were usually from insurance companies, advertisements, or people trying to sell something I didn't need. But something made me answer. "Hello." At first, there was only uneven breathing on the other end. Then I heard a faint sound, the kind someone makes when they're fighting desperately to keep their tears from falling. "Aunt Sophia." I stood up instantly. "Lucia? Sweetheart, where are you?" Lucia was my niece, the kind of child who wrapped her arms around you too tightly and said sorry even when you were the one handing her a glass of juice, as if her existence was always an inconvenience to someone. She inhaled sharply. "I'm at a station." "A station for what?" Raphael looked over from the sofa, his expression changing as he realized something was wrong. "I don't know," Lucia whispered. "It's dark. There's a sign, but I can't really read what it says." I forced my voice to stay calm. "Okay, it's all right. Just tell me what happened." There was a long pause. Then she said the words all at once. "My mom left me here." For a moment, my mind refused to understand. "Camila, left you where?" Camila, my younger sister, had always been skilled at becoming emotional when it helped her and charming people whenever she needed something. "At the station," Lucia murmured. "They told me to find my own way home." "Who told you that?" "Everyone." Her voice cracked. "My mom, Diego, my grandparents, Renata and Mateo." She meant my parents, Camila, her husband Diego, and their two younger children, Renata and Mateo. The kids everyone defended no matter what they did. They could knock over decorations, spill drinks, or make a mess of the house, and somehow they were always forgiven. "They were all inside the vehicle," Lucia explained. They were laughing. The silence in my house felt heavy. "Lucia," I said carefully, "why would they leave you there?" She hesitated before answering. "They said I always ruin the holidays." My fingers tightened around the phone. "What?" "They told you that you ruin everything." Yes. The most painful part wasn't just the words. It was the way she repeated them, as if she wasn't angry, as if she was trying to understand and accept a punishment someone else had decided she deserved. "Mom said I messed everything up," Lucia continued quietly. "She told me to go home and spend the night alone." "Alone? There's nobody there," she whispered. "They left. They said I had a spare key." I could hear the cold whine through the phone. And suddenly, I imagined it all: a lonely platform, passing vehicles in the distance, a little girl sitting beneath a flickering white light, trying not to cry. "How are you calling me?" I asked. Lucia didn't own a phone. Camila always claimed she didn't want her children becoming addicted to screens, even though she was constantly staring at hers, even during meals. "A woman here let me use hers," Lucia said. "I remembered your number," she said. That sentence hurt more than I expected. It was the same number I had repeated so many times over the years, the number I gave her whenever I watched her while Camila was too busy, too distracted, or simply didn't want to be responsible for her. "Stay with that woman," I told Lucia. "Don't move from there. Look around. Do you see a shop, a gas station, a sign, anything? Or is it only the road and the sign?" I heard her shift position. Then she answered softly. "San Mateo. Valle de Bravo Road." My hands shook slightly as I opened the map on my phone. We lived in Monterey, close to the Santa Catarina area. The road toward Valle de Bravo wasn't impossible to reach, but it wasn't nearby either. Not at night. Not on a holiday evening when the streets were nearly empty and the mountain air could turn painfully cold. "Lucia, I'm coming for you." "No," she said quickly. The fear in her voice stopped me. Please don't call my mom. I won't call her. She'll be angry. She told me not to tell anyone. She said I had to go home. Then she whispered something that made my chest tighten. She said I ruin everything. I closed my eyes. That was the part that broke me. Not a bruise. Not a wound anyone could see. Not something that could be captured in a photograph or explained away. It was a child carrying the belief that if the people who were supposed to love her treated her badly, then she must have earned it somehow. Listen to me carefully, I said. You did not ruin anything. Do you understand me? There was a pause. Yes, but her voice told me she didn't truly believe it. Give the phone back to the woman, please. I heard movement. A few seconds later, a cautious voice came through the line. Hello. My name is Sophia. I'm Lucia's aunt. Thank you for letting her use your phone. Can you tell me exactly where you are? The woman sighed softly. I'm near the entrance to San Mateo. I was coming back after leaving food at my brother's house when I saw her sitting there crying. I couldn't just leave her alone. My throat tightened. You did the right thing. Can you stay with her a little longer? I'm already coming. Yes, she replied immediately. I'll stay right here until you arrive. Thank you. Truly. What's your name? I may need you later to confirm what you witnessed. Patricia, she said. Then she added, but please, come get that little girl first. Lucia came back on the phone. I'm coming, I told her. Stay right beside Patricia, okay? Okay, Aunt Sophia. Then, almost like a confession, she whispered. I'm a bad girl. I had to force myself to breathe. No, Lucia. You are not bad. Not tonight. Not ever. I ended the call because if I stayed on the line any longer, I was going to fall apart. Rafael was already standing. Where is she? Near the road toward Valle de Bravo. Camila left her there. His expression changed instantly. He didn't question me. He didn't suggest there had to be another explanation. He simply grabbed his jacket. I'm coming with you. I'll drive. I'll keep track of the route, bring a blanket, and contact the authorities so there's a record. We were out the door within minutes. The cookies remained untouched in the kitchen. The holiday songs continued playing in the background as if nothing had happened. Rafael called emergency services and explained that a child was alone beside a highway at night. He provided the location and requested a report number. They told him the official statement could be completed once Lucia was safely out of danger. About halfway there, my phone buzzed. Camila. Lucia had begged me not to contact her mother, and I hadn't. But Camila calling me on Christmas Eve was strange. Either she wanted something, or she was trying to find out whether I knew the truth. I answered and put her on speaker. Sophia, she said, her voice filled with fake warmth. Merry Christmas. Why are you driving? How's everything going? She laughed lightly. It's amazing. The kids are having the best time. The cabin is gorgeous. I looked out the window. And Lucia? There was a pause. A small one. But long enough. Oh, don't even start with her, Camila said. She was impossible. Rafael turned his head toward me. What happened? I asked. She was sulking. Complaining. Making everyone uncomfortable. She had that attitude all day. Everything always has to be about her. The whole trip was ruined the second we left, Camila continued. She made everything miserable. She spoiled the mood. It was like she carried a cloud over everyone. There it was again. Spoiled. Ruined. As if Lucia wasn't a child, but some kind of problem everyone had to carry. So we sent her back. My stomach dropped. You sent her back? Yes, Sophia, she answered, sounding irritated that I was questioning her. She's 10 years old. She has a key. She knows how to take care of herself. She's not helpless. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. How did she get there? Omar said there's a bus route that passes nearby. It drops her close to home. Camila. Don't start, she snapped. Don't ruin Christmas for everyone else too. I felt my jaw clench. And Mom and Dad agreed to this? She gave a short laugh. Mom said it was time Lucia learned that her attitude has consequences. And Dad? He didn't want to get involved. Honestly, Renata and Mateo are much calmer when she isn't constantly trying to get attention. A wave of anger moved through me so cold it almost felt quiet. Camila, I said slowly, forcing every word out, You left a 10-year-old child alone beside a road on New Year's Eve." Her response came instantly. "We didn't abandon her somewhere dangerous. We put her on a bus." I looked out at the dark highway stretching ahead. Right. There was nothing else to say. "Happy New Year," I whispered. Then I ended the call. For several seconds, Raphael didn't say anything. Finally, he spoke. "She thinks Lucia is already home." I stared straight ahead. She doesn't want to know whether she made it there. The rest of the drive felt endless. There was almost no traffic, but the road was dark, and the mountain wind cut through the night. Every passing minute felt unbearable. The journey that should have felt simple stretched into something much longer. It took us nearly 2 hours. When we finally reached the stop, our headlights swept across the empty roadside. A worn wooden bench, a faded sign, and a small figure sitting beneath a weak orange street lamp. Lucia. I hit the brakes and jumped out before the car had even fully stopped. She looked up. For one heartbreaking second, she stared at me like she couldn't believe I was real. Then she ran. She wrapped her arms around me so tightly that I almost lost my balance. "I knew you would come," she whispered against my jacket. "I'm here now," I said, holding her close. "I have you." Patricia stood a few steps away, her arms folded, watching us with a serious expression. "Thank you," I told her. She shook her head. "Don't thank me. Just make sure no one ever leaves her there again." My throat tightened. "I won't." And I meant it. Inside the car, Lucia sat wrapped in Raphael's blanket. She didn't move much. She only stared down at her hands, like she was still waiting for someone to tell her this wasn't real. Like she was afraid safety could disappear at any moment. "You're spending the holiday with us," I told her. She looked up slowly. "But my mom told me I had to go." I swallowed. "I don't care what your mom said." She flinched slightly at my tone, and I immediately softened my voice. "I'm sorry. What I mean is, tonight, you're with us. You are not alone." The rest of the ride home passed in silence. When we walked inside, the house still smelled like cinnamon, warm sugar, and melted chocolate. We gave Lucia clean clothes, a hot drink, and something warm to eat. She curled up on the couch beneath the blanket, holding the mug between both hands. Then she said it again. "They said I ruined Christmas." I sat beside her. Somewhere far away, my sister was probably sitting inside a beautiful mountain lodge with my parents, laughing over dinner, taking family pictures, and watching her younger children open presents. Meanwhile, Lucia was in my living room, shaking because the people who were supposed to protect her had left her alone in the dark. I stayed awake until she fell asleep. I adjusted the blanket around her shoulders and realized rescuing her from that roadside stop wasn't the end of it. I needed proof. Everything needed to be recorded. Because I understood exactly what kind of pain Lucia was carrying. Camila was 4 years younger than me, and even as a child, she had discovered something I never learned. If she made the right face, cried at the right moment, or acted innocent enough, things usually worked out in her favor. My parents weren't cruel people in obvious ways. They never hurt us physically. They never denied us food or shelter. But they taught me something through years of small, quiet choices. I learned to wait. I learned to earn love. Camila learned she could simply receive it. I worked for the things she got without asking. Good grades. Finished assignments. Helping around the house. Avoiding trouble. Trying to be the child everyone could depend on. Eventually, I stopped hoping for things that were never offered. I believed that once we became adults, things would finally change. I was wrong. Then Camila became pregnant when she was still very young. She was living under my parents' roof, and I was there too, trying to finish my studies while working a part-time job. The subject of Lucia's father was almost never mentioned. Camila had removed him from every conversation, as though acknowledging him was an inconvenience she didn't want to deal with. When Lucia was born, Camila would hold her long enough for pictures, then pass her to whoever happened to be closest. Because my parents were working and Camila was still absorbed in her own world, Lucia slowly became my responsibility. At first, it was only for an hour. Then an entire afternoon. Then whole weekends. I was the one preparing her bottles. I was the one walking back and forth through the living room at 2 in the morning, trying to calm her cries. I learned the difference between every sound she made, the cries of hunger, fear, exhaustion, or needing comfort. Everyone told me it was temporary. They said Camila would grow up. They said motherhood would change her. It never did. Even after I moved away and built a life of my own, the requests continued. Can you pick up Lucia? Can she stay with you Saturday? Omar and I have plans. Omar came into the picture later. A new husband. A new home. A new opportunity for Camila to convince everyone that she had finally created the perfect life. When she married him, I wanted to believe things would be different. I wanted to believe Lucia would finally have the mother she deserved. But I was wrong again. Camila had Renata first, and then Mateo. Two children who were treated like they could do no wrong. If they knocked over a decoration, people laughed. If anything, they're just being creative. If they made a mess, someone cleaned it up and smiled. But Lucia remained the reminder of a chapter Camila wanted everyone to forget. It wasn't the kind of cruelty people notice immediately. There were no obvious bruises. No dramatic moments anyone could point to. It was a pattern of being left behind. You saw it in small things. Like when Camila carefully fixed Renata's hair with colorful ribbons while Lucia sat nearby with tangled hair and no one noticed. Or when Mateo received a huge birthday celebration while Lucia was told there was no cake left at Grandma's house. Even though she had spent the whole day with me. Even though she was excited to join the family outing. Then, right before we got into the car, someone would casually say, "You stay with your aunt. This isn't for you." And Lucia would simply nod. She never argued. She never demanded an explanation. It was as if she had already learned that asking questions only made people more frustrated. Omar behaved as though everyone should admire him for accepting a woman who already had a child. I took responsibility for something that wasn't originally mine, he would say sometimes, even when Lucia was sitting nearby. I never once heard him call her my daughter. Not once. He said Camila's daughter. Or your child. Words that made it clear she belonged somewhere else. Like she was an obligation instead of a person. Lucia came to me for everything. Homework questions. Scraped knees. Bad dreams. Fears she couldn't explain. Questions that should have been answered by her mother. I never poisoned her against Camila. I never told her what I thought. I didn't need to. Children understand who chooses them. They understand who stays. 6 months before that holiday night, something happened during a family dinner that changed everything. The house was full. There were relatives visiting, food covering the table, and everyone gathered together. Camila was performing the role of devoted mother perfectly. She talked about her children, their achievements, their struggles, and how exhausting, but rewarding, parenthood was. An older relative smiled at her. "You're such a wonderful mother, Camila." Camila looked pleased. She loved hearing things like that. Then Lucia spoke from her chair. Her voice was quiet, but everyone heard. "I wish Aunt Sophia was my mom." The entire table went silent. Camila's smile disappeared instantly. Omar stopped mid-bite. My mother slowly placed her fork down. For a moment, nobody knew what to say. Then Camila laughed. It was too loud. Too forced. "Don't say silly things, Lucia." But Lucia didn't smile. She kept staring at her hands and, in a quieter voice, repeated herself. "I want to live with her." Camila's glass hit the table harder than it needed to. Later, after everyone had gone home, she confronted me in the kitchen. "What are you telling her?" "Nothing. Don't lie to me." Lucia would never say something like that unless someone put the idea in her head. She said it because that's how she feels. Camila's face flushed with anger. "Well, that ends now." I looked at her. "You're not taking care of her anymore. No more special time together. No more weekends. No more anything. Camila." Lucia embarrassed me in front of everyone. And there it was. That was the truth. It wasn't that her daughter wanted to live somewhere else. It wasn't that Lucia was hurting. What bothered her was that people had seen it. Her image had been damaged. After that, I only saw Lucia during family events, places where Camila couldn't stop her from coming to me without making everyone suspicious. Every time Lucia saw me, she would run into my arms. She hugged me like she was trying to collect enough love to survive the weeks when I wasn't there. And every time, I noticed Camila's expression harden. She hated it. Since she had taken away my ability to care for Lucia privately, Camila found another solution. She began leaving her alone at home. "She's old enough," she would say. "She knows how to get herself something to eat." Meanwhile, she and Omar continued taking Renata and Mateo everywhere. Holiday performances, restaurants, parks, seasonal light shows. Lucia would stay behind, sitting quietly and watching the time pass. I saw it happening. I knew something was wrong. But I didn't know how to step in without giving Camila another reason to punish Lucia. Then came New Year's Eve. And that was the moment Camila crossed a boundary that could no longer be dismissed as a mistake. Leaving a child alone in a house was already neglect. Leaving her beside a highway at night on a holiday was something far more serious. Lucia slept on our couch that night, her hands wrapped tightly around the blanket. Even while sleeping, she held onto it like she was afraid someone would take it away. Raphael sat across from her in silence. His anger was obvious. Not loud, not explosive, just there. Heavy. When Lucia woke up, she looked around the room like she didn't recognize where she was. Then her eyes found me. "Aunt Sophia." "I'm here." She swallowed. "Can I stay here?" My heart broke. "I want to live here." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Because wanting to say yes wasn't the same as having the legal power to make that decision. Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to go back." I walked into the kitchen and lowered my voice. "I'm not sending her back like nothing happened." Raphael didn't hesitate. "Tell me what you need." I picked up my phone and sent a message to an old university friend, Valeria Montes, who was an attorney. She wasn't my lawyer at that point. She specialized in family matters and had a way of explaining difficult truths without softening them. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. "Sophia, what happened? Is everything okay?" "No," I answered. "I need you to tell me what I should do, even though it's a holiday." There was a brief silence. Then she said, "Tell me everything." So I did. I explained the phone call, the roadside stop, Lucia's words, Camila's explanation, the claim that she had supposedly sent Lucia home by bus. Valeria listened carefully. Then she asked, "Did you verify whether there was actually a bus running at that hour?" I froze. "No. Check immediately. Take screenshots. If there's a customer service number, call it." I opened the route information. I checked the holiday schedule. Then I called the number listed. Because it was New Year's Eve, the final departure had already left before 5:30 p.m. There was no bus. There was no possible way Lucia could have traveled home alone. My hands went cold. "Valeria," I said quietly, "there weren't any buses." Her response was immediate. "Save everything. Keep the screenshots. Document every message and every call. Then report it to the Emergency Family Services Office and the Child Protection Authorities." That was when I realized something. Camila hadn't sent Lucia home. She had left her there. I didn't waste time arguing over texts, evidence, screenshots, the exact location, or the condition Lucia was in when I found her. That night, we went straight to the emergency office of the Public Prosecutor's Department. I gave my statement with a calm voice that hid how badly I was shaking inside. I explained everything. The phone call, the roadside stop, Camila's words, the story about the supposed bus, the fact that the route didn't exist at that hour, the holiday trip, and Patricia, the stranger who had stayed beside Lucia when no one from her own family had. I also submitted a report to the State Child Protection Agency. The following morning, I completed every required step and made the situation official. I answered questions that made my stomach twist. Yes, Lucia had been left alone. Yes, the adults responsible for her had gone away on a trip. Yes, she was currently safe with me. Yes, I was willing and able to care for her. Patricia provided her information and later confirmed what had happened. She explained that she found Lucia crying at the roadside stop and that the child had been completely alone. No parent, no relative, no one who was supposed to be protecting her. That night, Lucia slept in the spare bedroom. Raphael placed a small nightlight beside her bed because he noticed she was afraid of the darkness. I didn't sleep. For the next several days, I waited for a call. Not an angry call. Not a dramatic one. The call you expect from a mother who suddenly realizes her child isn't where she should be. That call never came. The first day passed. Nothing. The second day. Still nothing. The third day. Nothing again. Lucia stayed in our home, barely eating, apologizing every time she asked for something, and leaving the bathroom door slightly open when she showered because being alone frightened her. Meanwhile, Camila and the rest of the family remained at the mountain lodge. Their reservation lasted several more days. I knew because they continued posting pictures online. Smiling faces. Holiday drinks. A fire burning outside. Presents being opened. Everyone looking happy. Later, I discovered something that hurt even more. Camila hadn't called the house once. She simply assumed Lucia was in her bedroom. That was all. On the fourth day, my phone rang. Camila. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, I listened. Sophia, answer me. Lucia isn't at the house. Do you know where she is? That was what she said. Not. Is my daughter safe? Not. What happened? Not. Where is my child? Only. Where is she? As if Lucia were something misplaced. A possession. Something missing. I forwarded the recording to Valeria. Do not respond directly, she told me. There is already an official report. Let the proper channels handle this. Later, I spoke with Daniela Rios, the social worker assigned through the Child Protection Office. She explained that temporary protective measures would remain in place, interviews would be conducted, and Camila would be required to appear and answer questions. For the moment, Lucia could stay with me as an approved family caregiver. When Camila learned that Lucia was living with me, she didn't react like a mother desperate to find her child. She reacted like someone trapped. The messages started immediately. What did you do? You had no right. Are you trying to ruin my life? Are you making Lucia hate me? I didn't answer. Then came the silence. But it wasn't peace. It was Camila thinking, planning, trying to decide how to reshape the story. A few days later, another message arrived. Asterisk fine. Keep her. But don't come complaining when you realize you can't handle her. She has always been difficult. She ruins everything. Asterisk. I stared at the screen until it turned black. I didn't cry. I saved the message. Another piece of evidence. Daniela arranged interviews. Camila missed one appointment. Omar failed to attend another. It took my parents several days before they finally reached out. But none of them sounded like people desperate to bring Lucia home. They sounded frustrated, embarrassed, angry that someone had written down the truth they had spent years pretending wasn't happening. As the weeks passed, Lucia remained with me under the protection order. And for the first time in her life, she had a place where she knew she was wanted. Valeria stood beside me when I filed for legal custody and later began the process for a more permanent guardianship arrangement. If you don't want Lucia's future to depend on Camila's emotions or decisions, she told me, we need to build a strong case from the beginning. I looked across the room at Lucia. She was sitting in the armchair, watching cartoons quietly. For the first time in days, she looked peaceful. Safe. I'm ready, I told her. Camila still believed this was just another one of my reactions. She thought I would eventually calm down. She believed I would give in, like everyone else always had, just to keep the family from falling apart. 6 months passed. Life became quieter. Not perfect. Not healed. Just quieter. And after everything we had been through, that alone felt like a miracle. Camila missed appointments. Omar took days to respond to messages. My parents continued speaking in empty, careful phrases. We have to think about what's best. She's confused right now. This is something the family needs to resolve. But no one actually did anything. The process moved slowly. There were documents, interviews, psychological assessments, court requirements, supervised visits that Camila requested and then canceled at the last minute. Little by little, I allowed myself to imagine something I had been afraid to hope for. Maybe Lucia could stay. Maybe this could become permanent. Then Valeria called me. Sophia, come to my office today. Her tone made me sit down before I even asked what was wrong. Did something happen? Come here first, she said. It's better if you see it in person. By the time I arrived, I already felt that something had changed. Valeria closed the door behind me and placed a document in my hands. It had the logos of a notary office and a financial institution. It had been delivered to the address Camila had listed years earlier, my parents' home. That was how everyone found out. "Read this section," Valeria said. I looked at the page. Then I read it again. Inheritance trust. Minor beneficiary. Lucia's name. Almost 19 million pesos. Asterisk asterisk. The air left my lungs. My first feeling wasn't happiness. It was fear. Because money like that doesn't enter a damaged family quietly. It changes everything. "It's legitimate," Valeria said. She sat across from me. The trust was created by Lucia's father's family. His mother, the paternal grandmother, established it. She passed away several months ago, and the official notification was only recently sent. Lucia's biological father had never really been part of her life. Camila almost never mentioned him. And when she did, it was always with irritation, as though even speaking his name was a burden. I knew his family had money, but I had never known details. Camila had always treated that part of Lucia's history like something better forgotten. Until the money appeared. "They know," I whispered. Valeria nodded. "And that changes the situation." The next day, she called again. "Camila has hired an attorney." I already knew where this was going. Omar is supporting her. What are they asking for? Even though I knew the answer. They want Lucia returned immediately. I let out a bitter laugh. "Returned now." "Now," Valeria said. After the trust notification. 2 days later, a legal notice arrived at my home. The language was formal and carefully chosen. But the message was simple. They wanted Lucia back. They accused me of damaging the relationship between mother and daughter. They claimed I had influenced Lucia against Camila. They insisted Camila had always wanted her child back. I placed the document on the table. Lucia didn't need to read it to understand. She was doing homework in the kitchen when she looked up and saw my face. She froze. "They're coming for me." I walked over and knelt beside her chair. "Are you sure?" Her eyes filled with fear. "They are." I didn't lie. "They're going to try." Her lower lip trembled. "I don't want to go back." "I know. I don't want them taking me away because of the money." That sentence hurt more than anything else she had said. "That money belongs to you," I told Lucia. "It exists so you can have security. So you can build a future. No one is going to use it as a reason to take you away from me." That night, Camila sent me a message. "You took my daughter away from me." I didn't respond. A few minutes later, "You turned her against me." Again, I said nothing. Then, "I'll see you in court." The next morning, my mother left a voicemail. Her voice sounded prepared, almost like she had practiced the words beforehand. "Sophia, this has gone too far. Lucia belongs with her family. Camila is her mother. Don't destroy your sister's reputation. This should stay within the family." I listened to it twice. I waited for something. A single sentence about Lucia. About how frightened she had been. About the night they left her. About the days when nobody called. But nothing came. To them, the tragedy wasn't what had happened to Lucia. The tragedy was that someone had finally forced them to face the consequences. Valeria prepared our case with a level of detail that kept me grounded. She organized everything. Screenshots. Messages. Bus schedules. The emergency report number. Official complaints. Interview records. Documents from the prosecutor's office. Psychological evaluations. Patricia's written statement. "This is exactly why I told you to save everything," she said, pointing to one specific page. It was the message from Camila. Asterisk fine. Keep her. But don't come crying to me when you realize you can't handle her. She always ruins everything. Asterisk. I stared at the folder in front of me. My hands felt cold. What if they believe her? Valeria didn't hesitate. They believed their own words when they wrote them. Camila told the truth before she realized she would need to rewrite the story later. On the day of the hearing, Lucia stayed home with Rafael. I didn't want her sitting in a courtroom while adults discussed her life like she was a possession being fought over. Before I left, she grabbed my sleeve. "Do I have to go back?" I knelt down so we were at the same level. "I'm not going to let anyone send you somewhere you were harmed." I didn't make a promise that depended on a judge's decision. I promised her something I could control. that I would fight. The hearing wasn't dramatic like television makes them look. There were no screaming matches, no emotional speeches, only documents, dates, questions, long silences. Camila arrived looking exactly like the image she wanted everyone to see. Perfectly dressed, composed, the devoted mother. Omar sat beside her, serious and quiet. My parents looked uncomfortable, almost offended, as though they were the ones being wronged. Camila claimed I had become obsessed with Lucia. Valeria responded by presenting the messages where Camila herself told me to keep her. Camila insisted she had always tried to spend time with her daughter. Valeria showed the missed appointments, the canceled visits, the interviews she failed to attend. Omar said he had always considered Lucia part of the family. Then Valeria presented the reports describing the years Lucia spent being excluded from family outings, celebrations, meals, and important moments. My mother tried to explain away the holiday incident as a misunderstanding. Valeria placed the evidence in front of the court. The transportation records showing there was no bus, the location of the stop, Patricia's testimony about finding Lucia alone and crying. Then came the question that changed the room. How long did it take before Lucia's mother asked where she was? 4 days. There was no explanation that could make that sound acceptable. Camila lowered her eyes. The decision did not come that day. Cases like this don't end with one dramatic moment. They continue through waiting. More documents. More evaluations. More nights spent imagining every possible outcome. Lucia returned to therapy. I returned to work. Raphael kept making enormous breakfasts every morning because helping was the only way he knew how to show he was there. Then, one afternoon, Valeria called me. And from the sound of her voice, I knew something had happened. Valeria's voice was gentler than usual when she spoke. The decision has been issued. I stopped in the hallway outside her office. For a moment, I couldn't move. The protective measures remain in effect. The court denied reunification with Camila. You will continue caring for Lucia while the final legal process is completed. I held my breath. And the trust? Valeria paused. The court ordered that the trust be managed only for Lucia's benefit under official supervision. Camila will not have control over those funds. I leaned my forehead against the wall. I didn't cry. Not there. I couldn't. But when I got home, Lucia was waiting in the hallway. She looked at my face like she could read every answer she had been afraid to ask for. I didn't make her wait. I knelt in front of her. She stood completely still. I'm staying. Her eyes widened. You're staying. Then all the air seemed to leave her body at once. She ran into my arms. She cried with everything she had. Not like a child throwing a fit. Not like someone seeking attention. Like someone who had spent years holding back tears and finally felt safe enough to let them fall. I'm staying, she repeated. Yes, I whispered. I held her tightly. You're home. Eventually, the temporary arrangement became permanent. It wasn't fast. It wasn't simple. There were evaluations, social workers, documents, court appointments, signatures. And there were still days when Lucia asked the same question in different ways because she needed reassurance. But in the end, the court confirmed it. Lucia would live with me. Camila was not allowed contact without court approval. Visits were suspended, and later, they were not granted. The professional evaluations did not support it. And when Lucia was asked directly, she continued to say the same thing. I don't want to go back. This time, the adults listened. My parents were not granted visitation either. Lucia spoke with specialists several times. At first, she spoke quietly, full of fear. Later, her voice became stronger. I don't want to go back. And for once, someone took her words seriously. By the following holiday season, our house looked almost identical from the outside. But inside, everything had changed. Lucia had her own bedroom. Not the guest room. Not a temporary space. Her room. A permanent place that belonged to her. She chose a blue comforter, decorated the walls with glowing stars, and placed a picture of the 3 of us on her desk. Her. Raphael. Me. It was a simple photo of us eating ice cream in a town plaza. Nothing extravagant. That was exactly why she loved it. The trust remained protected. Almost 19 million pesos held in Lucia's name through a supervised trust account. The money could only be used for her needs, with clear requirements and documentation. We didn't move into a larger house. We didn't buy expensive things to prove anything. We didn't turn her suffering into a reward system. That money was used for what Lucia should have always had: therapy, education, healthcare, security. A future that wasn't controlled by someone else's feelings. Camila tried to contact me through emails, new accounts, and messages sent through relatives. I blocked every attempt. Rafael did the same. Valeria helped us document everything. Later, I heard from a family member that the truth had finally reached everyone. People could no longer repeat the story that Sofia took Lucia away without remembering what actually happened. The holiday night, the roadside stop, the days of silence. Leaving a child alone was not something that could be erased by calling it a misunderstanding. My parents tried reaching out as well. We're her grandparents, they said. But being related to someone doesn't erase the choices you made. They never said, "We're sorry we left her there." Instead, they said, "That was a long time ago. You need to move on." But Lucia did not owe them another opportunity simply because they shared her blood. Some wounds take time. Even now, there are moments when she wakes up frightened. Sometimes she still asks permission before taking food. Sometimes she apologizes when she laughs too loudly. We are healing those things slowly. Together. The important part is that now, when Lucia falls asleep on the couch, her hands are relaxed. When she hears a car outside, she doesn't freeze. And when the holidays arrive, she doesn't wonder whether she will be abandoned again. That year, we made cookies just like we used to. Rafael bought disposable plates because he insisted that some traditions mattered. Lucia laughed while making hot chocolate and accidentally added far too much cinnamon. Before going to bed, she walked over and hugged me around the waist. I didn't ruin Christmas this time, right? I lowered myself until we were eye to eye. No, Lucia. I smiled. You never ruined any Christmas.